Hello and welcome to Gary's Garage. It's been a while. Today we're working on a Mercedes. This is an E550 Cab Relay. It's got the big V8 engine in it. Today all we're doing is front brakes, pads, rotors, sensor, and we're going to flush the brake fluid. So simple job, but I thought I'd take you along on this one. So if you're doing a similar job, this may be a good video for you to watch. So let's get going. Alright, one of the first things to do when you're doing a brake job is to check the level of the brake fluid. I've already removed the strainer. There's a little strainer in there that catches any debris that might fall in when it's open. And I'm using a vacuum pump. You can use a syringe or whatever. But what you want to do is start by removing some of the brake fluid. I'll tell you, it's not very often I get a car in the shop when the brake fluid looks that good. And you may ask, why do we do this? Well, we do this because when we get to the calipers, we have to push the calipers in for the new pads because the pistons on the calipers are extended to make up for the wear, and that space is filled with fluid. So when you press them back in, the fluid goes back into the reservoir and it overflows and gets on the car. So what we want to do is remove that fluid. I'm going to do 2 of these and then we can get started on the wheels. There's a screw that holds a rotor on. It's a good time to loosen it before you start taking the caliper off, because that way it's easy to hold that caliper in position with a screwdriver. These are not over torqued, so I love that. Easy. It's a T30. The next thing is that on this side there's a brake wear sensor that you can see here, and it's attached here. And this is what I refer to as an inverse Torx. So it is, what size is this? An E10, Torx E10. There we go. So now that we've got it out, just have to figure out how to unplug it without ruining anything. Yeah, and it's just, there we go. And then we can remove this from the brake pad. It should just come straight out. There we go. And I don't know if you can see it, but the knob is worn. Oops, sorry, I'm blocking. Yeah, sorry, the connectors are worn off. So it is, the light is on the dash. So we'll be replacing this sensor. All right, so that done. So it just so happens that this makes this part a little bit easier when you're loosening the brake pads off, because it's a great place to get your Waterman's pliers and just give this a bit of a squeeze. And as you're doing, if you're doing a 4-wheel brake job, once you get about into the second one and you've pushed the caliper in, check your brake fluid again. Just make sure that the level hasn't come up and it's overflowing. So all I'm doing is just creating a little bit of space so that the caliper will come off easy. I don't have to fight with it when I get it. So the next thing, and I'm going to swing you around here, is this anti-rattle or anti-squeak spring here. So these are a bit of a pain. There's a couple different ways of doing them. No doubt Mercedes probably has a special tool. 2 pairs of pliers, and you can like twist. So it's a little bit difficult to do, especially when I'm trying to get you to see. But there's another way that you can do this. Use a screwdriver and your handy dandy Watermans, and as you squeeze it in, you then move it out. There's a little hole behind this plastic cover. You can take the cover off, but I don't know, anything plastic can break when it's gotten hot. So I try to avoid taking these off. So there we go. So now is the caliper bolts. So what we need is a 13 millimeter. They're not that tight. And here, if I can get you in there to see. The light in there. You can see the bolts there, and then I'm just spinning them out. They're fairly long, these guys. If you're used to doing BMWs or other cars, you'll go, oh, this is different. So they use a different slide system. So into the magnetic tray. There we go. Okay, so I just have my homemade S-hook, and that'll allow me to suspend the caliper. So make sure your pins aren't dragging. There we go. It is coming. Get it up. So why we use the hook is to prevent damage to the flexible brake line. And there isn't a lot of room. There's this little plastic dewey that the brake line goes through. Normally there's a little bit more, you know, give. There's a bit, but it's barely enough here. It's important to hook it up, and to get the brake pads out. You just pull, and there's got the springs on the back that holds it in place. So you can see there's not much meat left on those. Okay, so the next step to get the rotor off is we have to take the caliper bracket off. So these are 18 millimeter headed bolts, and you're going to need a power bar. They're not crazy tight. I don't know if you can see. There we go. And move my caliper out of the way here. A little two-handed job. Good way. There we go. And we're still good. We're still hung up. And then I can use something to buzz it out here, so I will do that. And get you in behind here so we can buzz these out. Now you notice when you pull these caliper bolts out, there should be the remnants of blue, which indicates that they've used blue Loctite to tighten these. And so when you replace them, use blue Loctite. There we go. It's a little hard doing, but there we go. And there's the caliper bracket. Perfect. So what we're going to do is check the condition of the slide pins in the caliper here. They need to move back and forth. He's got a little bit of resistance to them. Sometimes you can just keep working them and they get easy. They seal good, but if they get dried out, you want to take the rubbers off, clean it up, and re-lubricate them. I think I may have to do that on this one. So there's the pin. I've got it out. So to get it out, it just slides through. It just clips on each end of the rubber boot. So you just have to release one side, start pushing it through, and then release the other side, and then pull it all the way through. Now I've just given it a clean, and now I'm just going to lube it with some silicone grease and then reinstall it to make sure that it slides properly all the way through. I just use this Silglide brake lubricant, and you don't have to get nuts, but get it all around the diameter of this, and then just go it. Yeah. And as you, of course, now it's hooked on the lip, so I got to get past there. So if you're using a screwdriver or whatever, make sure you don't cut the rubber. So gotta gently get it underneath the lip, and then that should help you get it started. A little bit of persuasion, it should. Come on. Man, you guys are not pointed in the right direction, are you? There it is, it's in. And then slowly push it through until it clips on the other side. And then there we go. It's still a little stiff, but well, you know it's lubricated, so it's going to be fine. So it wasn't really too bad, but I thought I'd do it just to show you how it goes. And then once you got it set, push it back in and leave it sort of that, and that'll help when you're reinstalling the caliper onto the caliper bracket. All right, there we go. All right, next up is to take the rotor off, and then we're going to push the caliper back in, the piston back in the caliper, sorry. So I've got the rotor off, and just take the screw out, pull it off, and so now what we're going to do is inspect this, and you can see there's a lot of rust and surfaces. So whenever you have two flat surfaces touching each other, any moisture that could get in if you drive through a puddle or just condensation, and it'll find its way in here and rust. So it's really important to clean this up so that the rotor fits flat on the hub, and that way it won't run out. So, but if you had, as an example, because the rotor is quite big in diameter, if you're out by 0.5 millimeter here because you're riding on a piece of rust, that would amplify to maybe 1.2 millimeters of run out. Maybe millimeters, not probably, but I mean thousands. And that's really outside of spec. The spec is probably less than the thousands to run out. So you want to clean this up really good, and then we'll coat it with something to prevent it from rusting before we reassemble it. So let's get this cleaned up. Just using a whizzy wheel here. This guy's, well, it's been used a lot, so it's not super aggressive. The rear wheel drive cars make this front brake job kind of fun because you can spin the hub. There, we'll fast forward you into a clean hub. All that's left is just a little bit of pitting. That is the steel, and there's no high spots, so we're good to go. And so we're gonna just I don't have the sound effects, so I'll just go back, a little bit of fluid film, and this will help make this surface here and the mating surface of the back of the rotor prevent from rusting in the future, so it'll be easy to come off. And so. Now, before you install your new rotors, it's really important to clean them, even though you'd think, oh, they're brand new, but they have a coating. These ones have a coating that comes off when you drive them, when you drive on them in the brake pads. But still, just the packaging and the people that handle it and so on, they work in a metal foundry, you know, there's stuff on these rotors. So do both sides with some brake clean. If by chance you're using used rotors that have been machined, when you get them back from machining, you wash them with soap and water. You can use like dish soap or whatever, and then you let them dry, and then you wash them with the brake clean. You finish with the brake clean, and that helps to get all the machining fluid out, or any loose metal pieces out, so that they're good to go. So there we are. So clean rotor to be ready to be put on. All right. So if you are lucky enough to have a caliper piston retraction tool, you can do that, but I don't, so I just use a clamp. Normally you would put the clamp on this way, but I don't think you can get at it because of this design of the caliper. You can't really get at it that way, so you need to sort of go this way, and there's a little flat spot on the back of the caliper that you can put the screw of the clamp. But of course, what the problem is that this thing keeps trying to go off center, so push it in. And when you're doing this, you're never putting a ton of force, you're just putting a small amount of force. I like doing it the other way, because then you push on the bottom of the cup of the piston, and that way you know the force is even. You're not trying to skew the piston from one side to the other. But if you go nice and slow, it will go in evenly. And without too much problem. And you want to get it all the way to the bottom. You want to make sure you don't damage the rubber seal around there. There we go. Sometimes the seals will fill up with air and you need to burp them, but these have just collapsed just fine. And so there's nothing to do here. And we're just going to put a little bit of lube on this surface. These brake pads, these Mercedes brake pads, have an adhesive back for here. I'm not too sure why they do it that way. Normally you lube them, but I'm not going to argue with them. I'm just going to go with that, but I will lube this part here. And so now we're ready to install the brake pads and the rotor. So first thing, holding your rotor, touching only the edges, line up your screw hole And what you can do, make life easy for yourself, is put a wheel bolt in. And what that does, even though it's not on fully, it aligns it. So then you can push it in, I think you can see, and you put the screw in. I orient it so that it's at the bottom, and if you put it around the top, it'll have a tendency to sort of stick out at the bottom. But if you put it around the top, you'll find that it's easier to get the thing to sit flat and tighten it up. Now, when you're tightening, you don't have to use a torque wrench or anything. Just use something like this, and that's it. Like, you're not like, because then they won't come off. So this is the really good design because it's flat, it's not tapered, but there's a little shoulder to keep the orientation there. But these will these come off quite easy, and then you can take the bolt back out. Prep the bolts with a little fresh Loctite, and so they orient the bolts through the knuckle, the steering knuckle, and into the caliper bracket. They actually thread in here. Sometimes getting it aligned is a little bit tricky. Once started, I prep both bolts in advance. Well, obviously I didn't have the top one. I just thought I did. There. Now, hopefully you can see enough there. Let's see the caliper bolts. And then we're just going to run them in. With the tool. Oop, a little bit quick there, Gary. That's just to snug them up, and now we're going to torque them. The torque spec here is 115 Newton meters, which is about 82 foot-pounds, which is typical for caliper bracket bolts. There we go. That should keep them from falling off. We're good to go. Next step is to install the brake pads. So I like to install the caliper, the piston side pad first, and I like to put a little bit of lubricant on these little dongers, or whatever you want to call these little fingers, and that helps this just get on and sit in a lot easier. The other side is pretty easy to do, but this side can be a little, they can hang up a bit, so a little lube goes a long way in making it go better. So, and now here's the Mercedes. These are all Mercedes factory parts, and so there's some kind of adhesive film on this. So normally, as I say, I would lube this, but in this case I'm not going to. I'm just going to, and this is this is where you need 3 hands, because you have to take the hook off. Oh, look at this. How good is that? That's come out. This goes in this side. And then it should just go on. Boom, like that. Magic. Magic. Now, make sure your slides are pushed in and out of the way, and that these sit, and there's these pins, and the brake pads will fit right on those pins. So once you're in, the next step is to take your caliper bolts and get them started. Where are we? There we are. Come on. There we go. Now they're started. Okay, so that's your 13 millimeter, and these are not very tight. They're typically about 20 to 25 foot-pounds, which happens to be what this tool will put out. So we can check them, but I'm confident that's going to be right. So, you need to look that up. So, the next thing we want to do is install the sensor, and then the little bracket here, and then plug in the sensor. So I've got a new one I got to open, and then we're going to stick it on there. So here is the new sensor. It's got like a weather pack seal on this side, and there's a little pin that goes in the brake pad, and then these little clips that hold it in place, and the wire faces this way. So you insert the sensor, and if you can see it there, bring the camera over and try and get you in so you can see it, and then you just push it in and it snaps in place. Hopefully you saw that. Pretty easy to do. And then you want to get the weather pack in there, and there you go. And Robert's your mother's brother. Okay, that's it. So grab your screw, your E10. Get that on. And anytime you've got a bolt going through plastic, you know the drill. Snug is just fine. And there we go. Make sure your lines are not interfering with anything. You can see the connection goes through, and here's this plastic ring here that holds everything together, and then the wire goes through there, and on this side there's all the connectors for the electrical, and they all clip into this plastic, and then there's your flexible brake line goes through a little grommet down at the bottom there, and that's what makes it a little bit tricky to do, because normally it's a bit more free. But that's it. So we're all buttoned up here. This is on. Brake pads are in. This has all been cleaned. So so that's it for the basic part of the brake job. So now we want to. The next thing we're going to do is bleed all the brakes. So we will, and not that it needs it because of a brake job, but for me it's just a normal maintenance thing. So anytime you do brakes is a good opportunity to change the brake fluid, and so I have a power bleeder that I'll use and will replace the brake fluid. Although it was very clean on this car, then we're going to have fresh brakes up front and fresh fluid, and it should perform very well. So let's set that up and you can see. Well, almost missed it. Forgot to show you guys. I'm gonna end up blocking you. There we go. I guess was a little too high. That's it. Then make just in place, and I got a little adjusting to make sure it's okay. All right, so here's the setup. So I've refilled the master cylinder most of the way. I will adjust the final level after we're finished bleeding. I've got my power bleeder set up, siphon at the bottom, 12 psi, usually what I do. You don't need to go crazy. And then at the back, we've got set up here the bleeding bottle. Pardon me. And I've removed the little rubber cap, and you've got the hose and the wrench. In this case, it's an 11 millimeter or 7/16, and you just want to get the bleeder open far enough, and you'll be able to see the fluid going down. And then in the bottle, I've made some hash marks so that I can see how much fluid's come out, and then it's just a matter of patience. I start at the right rear because it's the farthest from the master cylinder, and it's something, if you're getting air out, it's important. If you're just flushing, really what you're doing is some cars have dual lines from the front, one for each side. Some cars have one line coming from the front going to the rear, and then a T that goes to each wheel. The key is you need to pull enough fluid to so you get fresh fluid from the master cylinder all the way down through all the lines, and replace all the fluid in the caliper. And depending on how worn the brakes are, that volume in the caliper can vary, small to large. Take that in consideration when you're bleeding. I usually like to get about line's worth, a little over line's worth with each corner. And depending what you're doing, like if I'm on the race car, I probably really all I'm trying to do is get the stuff that's got hot out of the caliper. With a regular maintenance car, you're trying to replace all the fluid, so you want to give it a little bit more. And in the back, so the back usually goes a little slower, so just be patient, and when it gets to about in between these two lines, we should be good to go. You can watch it in fast motion. From here, the right rear, we're going to go to the left rear next, and we're going to do about the same amount of fluid, and then we're going to do the front starting with the right side. I won't show you every bit. It's a bit boring, but same thing. When you're finished, when you get to the level, you want to tighten up your bleeder. Then I like to pinch the front, hold it up. That way you don't spill any. And there we go. I just put the bolts in. Usually I just tie these over studs, but this is a bolt cart. So that's that. And then the last thing is to make sure that it's tight. Doesn't have to be over tight, but tight. And reinstall the dust cap. It goes over the top. That way no debris gets inside, no water gets inside, it doesn't rust. That makes it easier for the next job. All right. So one of the last things to do is to top up the Well, if you made it this far through the video, thanks for watching. Unfortunately, I lost the wrap up on this job on the Mercedes front brakes, so just adding another one here. And the wrap up is, hey, listen, I'm always open to comments and questions if you care to below. If you like the video, please give me a thumbs up. Give me a like. If you like what I'm doing, please subscribe to the channel. I do appreciate that. And thank you for watching.